Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Tutorials. In this very exciting video, we are going to make this absolutely gorgeous, hello, little crochet goldfish. And I should say before I get very far that this pattern was actually designed by Kate Wood. And it is a free pattern. Oh, there it is in bigger writing. It is a free pattern on Ravelry. It is, I believe, the best pattern for an actually realistic looking fan-tailed goldfish. And you can see his beautiful tail right there. This is a magnificent pattern. And to Kate's credit, it is extraordinarily well written and understandable. Hello. And, you know, it is just a joy to make. This is one I made in a multicoloured yarn. You can see that it changes colour as it works down the fish's body, and it really doesn't matter what your yarn choice is. You can see he's significantly smaller than, let's call them his parents, because it doesn't matter what yarn you actually choose. This is going to turn out wonderfully. Now, it is actually made in pieces. Obviously, that's the nature of amigurumi. So you have the two tail fins that you then attach to the body and to each other, and the three other fins on the fish. They are all the same. They're made using, these three fins are made using the same pattern, but obviously two go for the pectoral fins and one is the dorsal fin. So essentially for this project, you are going to need a less than 50 grams of a cotton yarn. It doesn't matter if you don't use cotton. You can use any other fibre yarn, but cotton definitely has that. It's a lot less stretchy than, you know, your acrylics or even your wools. You will need a couple of eyes, safety eyes, and you'll need some embroidery thread to make the mouth. But I am completely in love with this fish. If you know someone who loves goldfish, then this is a perfect present for them. And I haven't found another pattern that is out there that is as well written and produces a realistically shaped goldfish with this sort of tapered head and then back to that nice plump body and this beautiful tail that is just a joy to work and an absolute masterpiece to look at. Okay, I have waffled on about how much I love this pattern, but Kate, if you're listening, you are a genius. This is a beautiful pattern. So grab your stuff and we'll get started making this fish. I should mention before we start that the eyes, the size of the eyes is really entirely up to you. You are, as you can see, that this guy's got quite big eyes. They're actually a little bit bigger than the ones on this fish. And this fish, he's a generally smaller fish, so he has smaller eyes. This is it's an Aran weight cotton. This one, it's just an 8-ply cotton blend. So it certainly did create a smaller fish. There's a significant difference in their size. And obviously I'm not going to put massive eyes on this guy, although you can. It depends on how you like it. But for that, I just use the normal safety eyes. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using the Paintbox Cotton Aran in a melon sorbet colour. Obviously, your colour choice is entirely up to you. I made a blue fish, so, you know, you can really go crazy with colour if you want. You will need a corresponding hook. I'm using a 5.5 millimetre hook. I did use a 4.5 with these guys, and the same type of yarn, so we'll see how I go with this 5.5. You will need a pair of scissors, a needle, and I tend to use a metal needle for this because you do need to sew your pieces together, and a metal needle definitely helps. And some embroidery thread for the little smile, and stitch markers. Stitch markers are completely necessary in amigurumi because his body is made in continuous rounds, and you will not be able to determine where you started to know where to finish that round. So popping in a stitch marker is the best way to go. And for this fish, I'm going to be using these golden eyes because I think they go nicely with the melon sorbet colour. But again, your choice of eyes is entirely up to you. All right, let's get started. We're going to make the fins first, and I've gone ahead and I've already made most of the fins. So for the piece you need 2 tail fins and 3 of the pectoral and the dorsal fins. So this is the pectoral fins. I just need to make 1 more to make the dorsal. As you can see, I haven't sewn in my ends, and one probably criticism of this pattern, not that it's the pattern's fault, is that these ends are difficult to sew into this because it actually is quite gappy. So they can be a little tricky to sew in, but you'll get there, and you can, of course, use any ends to actually sew the piece to the fish. So you can see that the fin sits this way, with this short edge being at the back and the second shortest edge being towards the back, and of course that is the front, because fins are aerodynamic or water dynamic, hydrodynamic, and so I can use this tail to sew across if I had have left a longer tail. Maybe that's a tip for you, leave a longer tail. But irrespective, I can just use the excess yarn to sew it together. But we do need to make 2 of these, and as you can see, Kate's designed this so, you have these lovely sort of uneven edges to the fins, which just make it look very realistic. Okay, a little note on the pattern. It is about 5 or 6 pages long, but Kate has put in photos which are stunning, and also these wonderful little charts. Now, of course, this is this fin, and I guess it goes that way, and so she gives you a real idea of how it is meant to be made. This is actually the rose. I mean, it isn't a lot to do, but it can be a little bit confusing. I think that, though, this is potentially one of the best written patterns I have ever read. So there will be a link. Here's the diagram for the tail fin. There will be a link in the description to this written pattern. So feel free to hop onto Ravelry and print it out. It will be very handy for being able to, make them in the future, because once you make one, you'll want to make more. Okay, so we'll start with the dorsal fin, which will be, of course, these fins. The pectoral fins and the dorsal fins are the same, and you will need to make 3. I've already made 2, but you will need to make 3. So let's get started. Okay, for all of the fins, we work the whole project, or all of the fins, in the back loop only. And if you've never crocheted into the back loop only, it isn't difficult, but it just takes a little bit of remembering to do it. So you need to put a slip knot on your hook, and then the pattern for this fin asks us to chain 10. So we just chain 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then the way Kate writes the pattern is that she will then ask you to chain an extra one. So you've chained 10. On row 1 it says chain 1. And then we're going to single crochet 8. So just into the chain, pull up a loop, single crochet, and we'll do that for 8 stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we need to single crochet the remaining 2 stitches together. So we're just going to go into the stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch and pull up a loop. So we've got 3 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now Kate writes that as turn and chain 1, but it doesn't matter either way. So for now we need to work in the back loop only, and that you can see that there are 2 loops to every stitch. There's a loop there and a loop there. That isn't very clear. There's a loop there and a loop there, or a loop there and a loop there. And so that is the front loop because it's facing us, it's the front loop. So whenever you look at back loop only when you're turning, it is the back loop in relation to you. So it might be the front loop when I'm looking at it this way, but because I'm turned now and I'm going this way, this is the front loop and that is the back loop. So just this one here, that one loop. So we need to work in the back loop only. We've already chained 1. We're going to single crochet 2 together. So into the loop, pull up a stitch, into the next loop, pull up a stitch, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And then we're going to single crochet 7 in the back loop only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this one's a stitch 2 and 7. And then as the pattern is written, turn and chain 1. And then we are going to, we need to find this stitch here because it tries to hide when you turn. We're going to single crochet 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to single crochet these last 2 stitches together. So into the stitch, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. So we're always single crocheting together on the same edge. So because we just single crocheted together, when we turn and chain 1 again, we're going to single crochet 2 together again. So it will be single crochet. This one, because it's on that edge, it can be a little bit tricky to get into. So we need to go into that loop and then the next loop and single crochet those 2 stitches together, and then single crochet in the back loop only of the next 5 stitches. 2, 3, 4, and you might think this isn't a stitch here, but it is. So that is our 5th stitch. So it can be a little bit tricky, but just stay with it because that will then create that nice straight edge. So again, we're chaining 1 and turning, and then we are single crocheting 4 because our 2 together is at this end. So we're going to single crochet 4, so into that back loop, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then single crochet the final 2 stitches together. Three loops on the hook after going into both stitches and pulling up a loop, and yarn over and pull through. Now this is our final round, so we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to single crochet these 2 stitches together, so 1 and 2, and then we're going to single crochet in the remaining 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. And now we just need to fasten off. So as you can see, I didn't leave a long tail on that end because I don't even take my own advice. We don't need a particularly long tail here because you only need to fasten it in. And that is the same as that and his other friend over here. So you will need 3 of these, and they will all end up the same size if you follow those instructions. And of course that back loop only creates this lovely sort of ridged texture, which fish fins have. So she's given a lot of attention to detail, Kate, and I applaud her for that. All right, the tail is actually quite fun to make. As you can see, this is it here. Again, it's in the back loop only. We've got these ridges, and that will make that effect. When it goes onto the body, it will go on this way. So this is the bottom. You can make it the top if you like, but it's the bottom. It's the kind of trailing in the water fin of the fish. And then this will attach to the nub at the back of the body that we'll leave when we sew this shut when we get to the body. So it will need to look exactly like that at the end, and it will, I can guarantee it. Okay, so the pattern asks you to chain 32, and I have my chain of 32 here. Just take a minute to chain 32. Then the way Kate writes her pattern, as I said, with the dorsal and the pectoral fins, she will then instruct you to chain again. So it says row 1, chain 1, and single crochet in the next 15 chains. So we're going to single crochet into the next 15 chains. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then we need to single crochet 2 together twice. So that is going into the stitch, pulling up a loop, going into the next stitch and pulling up a loop, and then yarning over and pulling through all 3 loops. and then do that again in the next 2 stitches. And then we are going to single crochet in the next 13 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then we need to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and turn. And she then asks us to chain 1 again and single crochet into the next 15 stitches. So that is this stitch in that chain 3 we just did. 1, 2, and 3. That's our chain 3 that we made at the end of the last round. And then the next 12. So that's 15 in total. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then again, we are single crocheting 2 together twice. So into the back loop, pull up a loop, into the back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. And then again, into the back loop, into the back loop, and yarn over and pull through all 3. And then we need to single crochet 14. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. This last one on the end is a stitch. And then we need to chain 2 and turn, chain 1, single crochet 15 again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then you guessed it, we're single crocheting 2 together twice. So those 2 stitches, and then those 2 stitches, and single crocheting 14. Ten, 11, 12, 13. You might get to an end like this where you think, is that even a stitch? Yes, it is. 14. And we're going to chain 2 and turn, and chain 1 and single crochet 15 again. This is row 4, by the way. 2. I won't make you watch me crochet, single crochet my 15 again. We single crochet 15 along, and I'll meet you at the middle. Okay, so I've done my single crochet 15, then we need to single crochet 2 together twice in the middle here. So that's once, and there we go, twice. Hello train, and then we are single crocheting 14 along here. So single crochet 14, and I'll meet you at the end. Now I'm at 13 stitches here. When you get to the end, if you see this, remember that this weird looking one right at the end here is a stitch. So this is 13, and this one, there's its back loop and there's its front loop there. So just go into that one and make your 14th stitch. And then we're just going to chain 1 and turn, and chain 1 again, and we're going to single crochet into that as our first stitch, and single crochet into 14 stitches in total, so into the next 13. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And then we need to single crochet 2 together twice. 1 and 2, and then again 2. And then single crochet in the remaining 14 stitches. And so we'll single crochet all the way along for 14 stitches until we get right to the end. We've got this funny looking stitch, and we'll probably have to single crochet in there, I almost guarantee it. But I will meet you at the end. I'm just single crocheting into my final stitch, which is this kind of maimed looking one on the end here. That is 14. And then we need to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and turn. And chain 1. And then single crochet into 17 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those ones in those chains that you make, the extra chains you make, can be a little bit tricky. 5, all the way along to 17, and I'll meet you at the single crochet 2 together in the middle. Okay, I've just completed my 17th stitch. We need to single crochet 2 together twice. 1, 2, and again 1 and 2. And then we need to single crochet 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we are leaving the remaining stitches there unworked. And we are turning and chaining 1. And then we single crochet 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Single crocheting 2 together twice. 1, 2 together, and 1 and 2 together, and then single crocheting 13 and leaving any remaining stitches unworked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. and turning and chaining 1, and then single crocheting 12, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Doing our single crochet 2 together twice. And it's our second. And then single crocheting 5 and leaving any remaining stitches unworked. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're turning and chaining 1. And then we are single crocheting 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Single crocheting 2 together twice. And single crocheting 7 and leaving any remaining stitches unworked. Four, 5, 6, and 7. And turning and chaining 1, single crocheting 6. This is our last round. Single crocheting 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Single crocheting 2 together twice. 1 and 2. And then single crocheting in only the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. And then we can fasten off. You don't need to leave a long tail here because this isn't an edge you're going to sew in. So that is your fin, and it will be the same as the other one we made. And you can see that this one's quite flat, and that's actually because I've had something heavy sitting on it for a few days. So this you can block and sort of pin down and wet, so you know, it sits flat. Otherwise, just sit something heavy on it. These ones, I didn't bother doing any of that. And you can see that the tails are quite curly, but it doesn't detract at all from the beauty of this fish when it's sitting there. And given that I'm not, I mean, it does just kind of sit there. The fins do kind of curl up anyway, so it is no big deal. That is the fins done. So you need 3 of this small fin and 2 of this big fin. And when you've got those done, we'll get started on the body. Okay, you have done the fins. Well done. There is a reason that I put the fins at the beginning of this tutorial rather than the body first, and that is because there is kind of nothing more irritating than getting into an amigurumi project and then realizing you've done the body and then the little add-on pieces are diabolically difficult and you give up. So if you have persevered with the fins and you've made those fins, well done. They aren't that difficult. They are just a little bit tricky, especially when you're going into those chains that you create at the end of a round. But this is the body of the fish. So as you can see, the head kind of tapers and then it kind of tucks in a little bit and goes back out to the body. And it just means that we'll be starting right at this tip of the nose with a magic ring. If you don't want to do a magic ring, you're going to end up with a big hole in the nose, and you don't want that. So you do really need to do magic rings for amigurumi. But they are very easy, and I'll show you how to do one. And then we're going to keep increasing quite slowly, and then we'll get to a point where we'll need to just decrease slightly and then come back out to the body. So to do the magic ring, all you need to do is lay the yarn across your hand like that with the tail loose and wrap it around the back of your fingers. So, and then come back up and cross it over the front of your fingers. So you've got a little X that you've made with the yarn on the front of your hand there, and then grab the hook. I've actually changed hook sizes. This is a 4.5mm hook with this Aran weight cotton yarn. It'll make sure that the holes aren't too big for my fish. Go in under the front loop and grab that back strand, drag it under and just turn your hook up so you've got this little loop on your hook. And then I take that opportunity just to grab that working yarn and chain. And then that actually creates really quite a stable magic ring. And I just close that magic ring just a little bit to make it easier to work into. So the pattern then asks for you in round 1 to crochet 6 single crochet into the ring. So that is just 6 single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then close that ring. And you've got your 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to increase into every stitch, which simply means to put 2 stitches in each stitch around. So that's 1, and back into that same stitch for number 2. And then 3 and 4 go in the next stitch. 3 and 4. 5 and 6 in the next. 5, 6, 7, 8 in the next. 8, 9, 10 in the next. And 10 and 11 and 12 in our final stitch. And 12. So that is round 2. And so that is a total of 12 stitches. In the next round, round 3, we're going to single crochet into the next 3 stitches and then increase in the 4th, which means that we'll be increasing every 4th stitch, and 12 divided by 4 is 3, which means we'll only be increasing by 3 stitches, giving us a total stitch count for this round of 15 stitches. So I'm going to single crochet in the first 3 stitches, 1, 2 and 3, and then pop my stitch marker in 3 stitches back so I know where I started, and increase in that 4th stitch. So 2 stitches into that stitch, 1 and 2, and then do the same thing again. Single crochet into 3, 1, 2 and 3, and increase in the 4th. And then one last time, single crochet into 3, 1, 2, 3, and increase in our final stitch, 1 and 2. So that was round 3, and we'll have a total of 15 stitches in our round. In round 4, we are single crocheting into 4 stitches and then increasing in the following, which will again increase us by 3 stitches, giving us a total of 18 stitches in this round. So we simply single crochet into 4 stitches, 2, 3 and 4. Just going to pause and pop my stitch marker back 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, so I know where I began, and then increase in that next stitch, 2 single crochet into that stitch, and then again single crochet into 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and increase in that next stitch. And then one last time, single crochet into 4 stitches, 3 and 4, and increase in our final stitch. Get out of the way, stitch marker. I mean, you're helpful, but you're not being helpful then. All right, so that is round 4. Now in round 5, we're going to single crochet into 5 stitches and increase in the next. 2, 3, 4 and 5. I'm just going to count back 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pop that stitch marker in and increase in the next. And that will give us a 3 stitch increase for the round, giving us a total of 21 stitches in this round. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, increase, and then one last time, 3, 4 and 5, and an increase in that 6th stitch. And that was round 5. Now round 6 is the same. We're just crocheting into 6 stitches and then increasing in the 7th. So that's 3 stitches, just popping my stitch marker in. 4, 5 and 6, and increasing in the 7th stitch. So 2 stitches in the 7th stitch. And just go around that way. For the whole round. 3, 4, 5 and 6. Increase in the 7th. And one last time. 4, 5 and 6, and increase in our final stitch. For round 8, we are doing, oh, sorry, it's round 7 now, isn't it? Yeah, that was 6. So we're doing the same thing, single crocheting 7, 1, 2, 3, put that stitch marker in, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and then increasing in that 8th stitch. And then again, single crocheting 7, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and increasing in that 8th stitch. last increase in that 8th stitch. Around 8 is exactly the same, except we single crochet 8 stitches and increase in the 9th. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, and increase in the 9th. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and increasing in the 9th stitch. Seven, 8, and 9 with an increase. Okay, so round 9 is our little decrease round. So we should have a round of 30 stitches now, and we're going to decrease down actually by 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet 3 and then single crochet 2 together, or do a decrease. And I like to do the invisible decrease, so I'll show you how to do that. So we're just going to single crochet 3, 1, 2, and 3. Pop that stitch marker in so we don't get lost. And then do a single crochet 2 together. Now, unlike the way we did it for the fins, we're going to actually go into the front loop only. So we're just going to go into this front loop here and the front loop of the next stitch. So we've got the 2 loops from those front loops from the 2 stitches on the hook, as well as our original loop, and we're just going to yarn over and pull through those 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops, and then single crochet 3, 1, 2, 3, and again do the invisible decrease. So just into the front loop of that first stitch, into the front loop of the second stitch, and yarn over, pull through the 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So single crochet 3 again. Need to do this 6 times. Into the front loop only of that next stitch, and I turn my hook. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed I turn my hook so I can grab that other front loop, but you don't have to turn your hook through those 2 loops and then through those 2 loops. Two and 3. Front loop of the first stitch, front loop of the second stitch, and yarn over through those 2, and then yarn over and pull through. One, 2, 3, decrease. Those trains are getting honky. And our final 3 single crochet, and then decrease. Front loop, front loop. Oh, I didn't grab all the fibres there. And that is the end of round 9. Okay, so round 10 is an easy round. It is simply a stitch in every stitch. So a single crochet all the way around for 24 stitches. Two, 3. Pop your stitch marker in. Don't forget that little fellow because he's your best friend in this kind of work. And I'll meet you after we've single crocheted into every stitch around and we're back at the stitch marker. Okay, so we've got 24 stitches in our round now, and the pattern actually recommends that you pause here and make the face. So the eyes should sit at around row 6, and you can see on this little fellow, he sits at about row 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he sits between row 5 and 6. And I like that position. I actually think it's a really nice logical position for the fish's face. So decide what you think the top of your fish should be. I actually quite like this side, so what I'm probably going to do is come in and close these wider holes here with my embroidery flossed mouth, which will sit that way. So I'm just going to make that the top of the head, and the eyes will sit about here. So I've got my eye. We've got around 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's going to probably an eye is going to go there. Let's pop that one in. I'm not going to put the back on yet because I haven't decided, have I? And I've put them about 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches between the eyes. So if I did that, then we've got, say, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then that looks like the corresponding position on the other side. You just have to kind of wing it as you do this because eyes are so important, and so absolutely don't put the backs on until you are perfectly happy with their position. Holy heck, he looks cute. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that position. And we're going to take this opportunity just to make the mouth. So grab a darning needle or a needle of some kind and some embroidery floss. This is the 6 ply. I think it's got 6 threads within this, and I really like that because I'm hopeless at embroidery. So I like to make sure that when I put the the mouth on, I don't have to go around across too many times. I think this is actually 2 passes on each stitch, and it is just a simple 3-stitch mouth. So just thread your embroidery needle, if you can get it on there, and however you do this, you may come up with a better method than me, but I tend to sort of just look at the face and think, yep, I actually want quite a big grin on this little fellow. So I'm going to probably go from there to there. So I'm going to want to come in the back and come out there. I'll leave a fair bit of room, or a fair bit of thread there. And actually what I tend to do is try and get it so it tucks around the inside of where those eyes are. And if you can sort of loop it around the eyes, then when you put the eyes on, the backs of the eyes on, they'll hold the thread in place for you. So then I'm just going to go to the middle and come out. Is that the corresponding position, or is that? That is. So I'm going to come out there and then go back into the middle and come out on that side. No, he looks so cute. Ah, dearie me. Anyway, all right, and I'm just going to do one more pass with that, just to thicken that mouth up a bit and give him a bit more substance. You don't want to pull too hard on your thread, but you do want it to be not baggy. I think that looks pretty good. So from here, what I'm just going to do is just gently nip under this thread and just tie a small knot. And hopefully it'll be right in the corner of his mouth and not visible. And then just going to pass that back into the head of our fishy. That's lovely. And just cut it off. And that is our smile made. So you can see, if you see inside there, I'm trying to loop these ends around so they ultimately get caught by the backs of the safety eyes. So I am happy with those eye positions, so I'm going to apply my backs. Wish me luck. Some of these backs can be really difficult to get on, and if you've never applied safety eyes before, you might actually wonder which way around they go. So there's the domed side and then there's the cup side, and the cup side needs to face, so you put your safety eye, the cup side, down so the dome is facing into the middle of your work. And use all your brute strength to snap it on, because certainly once these are in place, they don't move. Holy moly, he's so cute. All right, so that is the eyes and the mouth done. Let's move on to round 11. Okay, and you can pop your tail in there. I just tend to keep it out actually while I'm doing that embroidery and the eyes, just because otherwise it gets in the way and I end up cursing at it. So, and that's unladylike, isn't it? Anyway, round 11. Round 11 is another increase round. So because we decreased slightly to make that sort of collar around its neck, we're going to increase again. So we're going to single crochet 3 and then put the increase in the 4th stitch. So single crochet 3, 1, 2 and 3. Pop that stitch marker in. 1, 2, 3. No, I've just put it in the 4th. What a goober. Can't get it out now. There we go. But you're number 3. All right. And increase in the 4th. 2 single crochets in that stitch. And then we're going to do that all the way around. So I'll meet you when we get back to the stitch marker. Okay, I'm back where my stitch marker was. I've just taken it out. For round 12, we are going to single crochet 4 and increase in the 5th. 2, 3, and 4. Just going to count back 4, 2, 3, 4. And increase in that 5th stitch. We're going to do that all the way around until we reach the stitch marker again. Okay, so for round 13, we're actually going to work 5 single crochet and then increase in the 6th stitch. So it's exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pop in that stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And increase in the 6th. And then we're going to do that all the way around until we get back to the stitch marker. Right, so we're at the end of round 13, it is actually. So you can see that his head is flaring out here, and that will enable that to go into a body. For the next 8 rounds, we're going to continue crocheting 42 stitches around, which is 1 stitch in each stitch around for 8 rows, and that will form the bulk of the body. So, and then when we start getting to about here, we'll start to decrease down and finish that body. But for the next 8 rounds, 1 stitch in each stitch, 42 stitches around. So once you complete that, meet me back and we'll start decreasing. Okay, so after the 8 rounds of 1 stitch per stitch all the way around, that is what your fish will look like now. And for now, we need to do a further 8 rounds and then the fish body will be finished. So we're going to start decreasing, and for this round we're going to single crochet 5 and then decrease. 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm just going to count back 5 to get my stitch marker in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then decrease. And we're going to use that same decrease method of front loop only and front loop only of the next stitch yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through those. And then we're going to do that all the way around. So 5 single crochet, three, 4 and 5, and decrease. And do that all the way around, single crocheting in 5 stitches and then decreasing in the next 2, and I'll meet you back around at the stitch marker. Okay, so round 23 is pretty much the same. It's another decrease round, as they all will be from here, and instead this time though we're going to single crochet 4 and then decrease. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then decrease with the front loop, pull through those 2 loops and pull through those 2 loops. Of course I forgot to put my stitch marker in, but that's where it goes. Don't do that, don't forget your stitch marker. Life is tough when you forget your stitch marker. Alright, so 4 single crochet, 2, 3 and 4, and decrease in the next 2 stitches. Front loop, make sure you get all the fibres, and decrease, and I'll meet you back at the stitch marker. Okay, so round 24 is 3 single crochet and then decrease. So that is 1, 2, 3 stitches. Pop in that stitch marker this time. And then decrease with the front loops only to make the decrease invisible. So single crochet 3 all around, and then do your decrease. 1, 2, 3 stitches, and then the decrease. And I will meet up with you back at the stitch marker. Okay, so you can see that your fish is decreasing towards that back end quite rapidly. So now is probably a good time to look at putting in some stuffing. Stuffing is when you start to stuff a toy, it's always a great time because it sort of means that it's almost complete. So pop that stuffing all the way in, and try and get it so it goes past those safety eyes and into the head. And you don't want to overstuff toys because of course if you overstuff it then you'll really stretch it out, and especially if you're using an acrylic yarn, then that will really stretch the stitches and you'll be able to see the stuffing in the gaps between the stitches. It's one of the reasons that cotton is better, because there is a lot less stretch in a cotton yarn. but certainly whatever stitches or whatever yarn you use is entirely up to you. This one is quite soft. I didn't stuff him a terrible amount. This one's probably my hardest. You could probably hurt someone if you threw that fish at him. Not that you would, of course. We wouldn't go throwing fish at people, would we? No. Not at all. Didn't mean that to sound like an evil laugh either. Anyway, I'm just busily stuffing my fish, so I should probably stick to that. You don't have to completely stuff it right up at this stage because we still have a few rounds to go. In fact, I said earlier that there was 8 rounds, but there is a couple of rounds after that. So, all right, let's hold it there. The next round is actually, we're back to single crocheting 6. If I could find the way this loop works, there we go. Back to single crocheting 6 and then decreasing. So once again, I know you know the drill. We just single crochet 6, 2, 3, put your stitch marker in, Kim, and 3 more. Two and 3, and then decrease again using the front loops only. So it's 6 single crochet and then decrease, and I will meet you back at the stitch marker. All right, the next round is round 27 and it is 4 single crochet 4 and then decrease. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. Pop in that stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then decrease using our invisible decrease method. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Three and 4. And decrease. And I'll keep doing that around and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. Okay, so we are almost there. It's almost closed at the base here. So you can pause and just add a little bit more stuffing if needed. And how much you stuff your amigurumi is entirely up to you. Some people like them to be very firm, others like them to be nice and soft, so it's entirely up to you. There is still more opportunity for stuffing if we need to, so you don't need to pack it all in right now. This next round is round 28, and it actually is our last decrease round. Then we are going to actually sew the remaining hole together. So we need to single crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3, and then decrease. And pop in that stitch marker, and I'll meet you round at the stitch marker. Okay, the remaining 2 rounds, 29 and 30. No, the remaining 3 rounds, 29, 30 and 31, are just 3 straight rounds of single crochet all the way around. So you should have 12 stitches, and we need to just do 1 single crochet in each stitch for 3 rounds. So let's do that and I'll meet you back. Okay, so after those 3 rounds, your fish has this kind of almost tail, but that is the place where we will actually attach the fins. It gives us something nice to attach those fins to. But this is your last opportunity to stuff now, so definitely take this opportunity to add any additional stuffing in through that narrow hole. And then we need to, actually we can cut off our yarn here, and we need to fasten it with a needle from here. We're not going to close it right down because if we continue to decrease, it'll reduce the amount of space we've actually got to sew that tail onto. So we're not going to do that. We're going to physically close it with a needle. Okay, so just pop your hook back in and fasten off, and give yourself a reasonable tail because you need to be able to sew with it. And we're done with what's attached to the ball, and then we just need to thread our needle, and this needle's actually quite fine for this yarn, but I like this needle so much, so I'll persevere and try and get that yarn through. There we go. Alright, so to do this, all we need to do is go into the next stitch and just gradually close this gap by just going into, if not the next stitch, but 2 stitches ahead, and just start gradually closing the gap. We don't want to close it too quickly because, as I said, that'll kind of wreck this lovely little spout that we've got to attach the fins to. But just close it nice and gradually, and then it'll give us a good platform for those fins to attach. Stop poking out little fibres. And just keep going around. And you want to really close this all the way. You don't want to leave it open really at all, but just do it gradually and don't go across, otherwise you can end up It was good, wasn't it? You can end up with a point, and you don't necessarily want a point. Get in there. That fibre is just really trying to come out, isn't it? Don't think poking it with my hook is going to help. Let's see if I can keep it out of the way while I manage to close up. Now you could do something like this 100 times. The minute you do it on camera, it oh, that's life, isn't it? Anyway, it will not matter because do you just want to come out? Little piece of fibre. Okay, your wish is my command. And as you go around, that gap just gets smaller and smaller until we won't be able to put the needle through it anymore. And that is, I think, almost now. There we go. Okay. And that's that. Your fish should look like this. There's his little head and he tapers down to a nice little tail. So at the moment you've got a tail hanging out. What I tend to do is just pass it back in that opening and just pass it back through. And cut it off. So it hides that tail within the body and it will stay quite straight. So the time has come to attach these fins. But before we do that, we need to weave these ends in. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it is actually reasonably difficult to completely hide these ends. And that's because there's not a lot of room within these stitches to hide the ends. So do the best you can. I tend to just go into the stitches, into a lot of the stitches, and try and get it in there. It may come out. You may actually find that your best method is to just put a tiny dab of glue onto it to keep it in place. I haven't found a foolproof way to keep these ends in here because there's not a lot for them to hang on to. But certainly if you use a tiny dab of glue, it is not going to hurt, and it will secure those ends for you nicely. I just think maybe changing directions a few times is the best way to go. But like I said, not foolproof, because I'll show you something on this one. This end worked itself out today just while I was using it for this tutorial. So, you can see that they're there. And if I cut that off and then put a little tiny dab of glue there, you'd never see it again, but I haven't done that. So that may be something that you do. It is just because of the complete lack of density in the stitching on these fins that it happens. If you find a good way to hide them, by all means, put that in the comments. That would be actually fantastic. And I'm sure a whole heap of people could benefit from your experience. But yeah, a dab of glue probably is my best suggestion to keep them completely. If you were actually giving this to someone as a gift, then you would want them hidden away. You wouldn't want them poking out like that one is. Okay, so that is one tail fin done. You just need to weave in the ends of all your fins, and when we've done that, I'll meet you back. Okay, so all my loose ends on my fins are sewn away. Now I like to attach, let me just zoom out a bit. I like to attach the back fins first. And so as I said earlier when we were making them, this piece with the long hanging outy bit, protrusion I guess is probably the correct word, that is the bottom. So if you put your two fins facing each other and then with both of the bottoms that way, and then bring your upright fish, so there's his eyes, bring your upright fish in and just position that so that one fin is on either side of his little rump there. And have a look at how you feel that looks. I'm pretty happy with that. What we're going to do is sew this piece to that side, this piece to that side, and then these two pieces together up to about there. But to do that, we need a piece of yarn. So just grabbing a piece of yarn from my ball. Thread your needle. And just make sure you're happy with the position again. Of course, the join of the two fins needs to sit between the two eyes. So I like to come in at the bottom right underneath the fish and then come out and go through the fin and just leave a little tail hanging out, and then go back in to the body of the fish pretty much anywhere and back through the tail. The good thing about this is that we are using the same colour, so it's not really going to be that evident. And then we can go through that fin, through the back tail and out into the other fin. It might be a little bit of a challenge to pull through, but we'll get there. And then just the same way, just secure that to a stitch on the body there. Okay, so they are a little bit secured now. So they're not fully secured, obviously. We just need to go back into the fin and back out the body. And it really, there is no set way to do this. You can do this however best suits you. I tend to be probably the world's roughest sewer. I just like to hide my stitches. Just go back in there. It's quite tough where we closed. Go back through to the other side and secure that other side. Great, so he's pretty well secured. Just going to go back in. I'll come back in an easier spot and come out the top. And I'm just going to go into one fin and across the top of the tail, and then into the other fin, and again across the top of the tail. And pull that tight, and then I'm just going to whip stitch up these two tail pieces. And we don't want to go all the way up, but we're going to close them about a third of the way. So to about here we're going to close them. Just whip stitching all the way up. And then I'll just pass the needle inside. I'll just check all my joins down the bottom here. He looks pretty secure. So just make sure you're happy with how securely your fish tail is joined to the body, and then just bring yourself back down to the base of the tail. Might just put one more stitch in there on either side. Just to make sure that that's secured. And then I am done. So what I'll do is just sew over this tail. And put you through my loop. And then just bury that end in the body, if I can get it. And snip it off. And I'll snip you off too. Okay, so that is the tail done and on. And it looks lovely. I completely adore this fish. All right, so the next thing we need to do is find his pectoral fins. Now, the pectoral fins sit with this edge on the body. So this short edge sits towards his tail, and the second longest edge, the angled edge, is towards the back. So this straight edge runs at the front on both sides. So you need to sort of position that where you're happy. And as you can see here, I've sort of put it just behind his head, a couple of rows behind his head, and sort of almost in line, oh, can't see that, almost in line with that pectoral, the dorsal fin, but the dorsal fin's back just one row. So let's just, we're all going to go almost at his head and almost at his head, and you want to make sure that they're even, because if they're not, then that's going to look a bit wonky. All right, so I'm kind of almost lining that up with the mouth. I don't know if you can see that, but that is almost lined up with the mouth. So I'll drop that one and I'll come in and I'll just start with attaching this one. I'm trying not to move it. Definitely, a lot of the time with amigurumi, it does help to actually pin your pieces in place, but I've found that there is so little to grasp onto with these fins that it never worked for me. So if you pin yours in place and are happy with doing that, then great. Then definitely do that. But yeah, I find it's just easier to hold them in place and sew them that way. So, oops, sorry about that, I just knocked the camera. Am I still happy with that fin placement? Yes, I reckon that'll be good for both of those fins. Okay, so I'll finalise that. Now, it really is as easy as that. You just need to grab a stitch and sew it on. It's beautiful because this is the same colour, and so it's not really, the stitches aren't really that visible. If we work on the underside like this, you can definitely be a little rough. You don't have to have the neatest stitches on the face of the earth, and you shouldn't be able to see them on the top. Okay, as I did before, I'm just going to put that end through my loop when I make it to tie it off. I might just make another one holding that end in place. I will cut it off, but I just want to make sure that it's secure. Okay, and then again we can just pass this thread down into the body and out. And snip it off. And snip you off. Okay, that looks great. All right, now this final petrol fin, is that at about the same level? About the same level. Okay. And then once we've done this fin, we only have that dorsal fin to go, and our fish is done. This is a really quick make. It really only takes a couple of hours to make this fish. You know, depending on how allowed you are in your life to just zone everything else out and crochet. You know, it's certainly not a luxury we have all the time, is it, with families? But it is a really quick make, and it's such an effective pattern. It's just stunning how realistic well, you know, almost realistic, this little fishy looks. So I'm just going to pass my yarn back down and tie off once more. And you know what, I mean, if the fins are slightly off center, I don't know, I'm not a particular perfectionist, so I actually think they look quirky when they're just a bit wrong or wonky. That's okay, doesn't bother me. But look, I know other people are, so you definitely want to try and get it as right as you possibly can. And just one more time, tucking around that tail. Oops. So we're just going to pass that down into the body, the way we always do. And cut it off. Oh, look at this happy little guy. He looks like a, I don't know, like a stingray. But yeah, anyway, he's a fish. I don't think it's supposed to look like a stingray, but there you go. Just grabbing another piece of yarn for the dorsal fin. Now, as I mentioned, the dorsal fin, the small edge goes to the back, and this long edge is what will lay on the fish. So it sits like that on your fish. And obviously you need to center it between the eyes and in line with the tail. So I'll just grab my yarn and needle. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to just try and make sure that it's as lined up as it possibly can be. I don't want to start right on his neck. You can see that this one starts a fair way back. So does this one. So I just want to start a little bit back, and I'll start here. Bring that through, and then I might fold that front. Okay, and just stay in the middle there. Okay, that's quite secured at the front. Great. So then we can just grab a stitch and grab a piece of the fin, and move along in a fairly straight line, just stitching that fin on. And I mean, I know the first time I made this, you know, just going by the pattern, this was, oh, I had a hell of a time trying to work out exactly how this fin sat, and the pectoral fins. So I don't even get it. But it did take me a little while, and Kate is quite good in her instructions. She does have photos attached to the pattern, but yeah, I just couldn't seem to get it, and so that's why I'm just taking this opportunity to explain to you exactly how these fins get attached, because there's nothing worse than realizing you've put something on upside down and having to take it off. Okay, so we don't sew this part on that stands up, and then we can just go back along if you need to, but that's actually really quite secure. I don't like that little lump at the front though, so I'm just going to pass this thread down. Now that lump at the front has just been created by where I crocheted, and there's the chain and everything, so I'm just going to go and minimize that. Oh, actually, I don't know what that is. All right, well, let's get rid of it. There we go. That's tied down, but now I've still got this lump. Let's tie you down. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So I think that actually may have been my loose tail end. And there's probably someone watching this going, yes, it was Kim, I saw it happen. I think it was indeed. So that is that, and then all I need to do is go in here and once again come out the body. And ta-da! We have our little fishy. Hello. I completely love this fish, and he can join his family or her family and the little baby. I do hope you make this fish. The link for the pattern on Ravelry will be down in the description box. It is a Kate Wood pattern. I thank Kate Wood for her wonderful design, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take a minute to subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you in the next video. Enjoy your day.